welcome to an early start to One Revolution's Q&A. Today, I am joined by Jason Fowler. Jason's been a good buddy. I remember him coming onto the scene back when you were like 18 years old, right? Is that what it was? First road races back in Massachusetts. Yeah. 8-time New England champion motocross, in motocross from what, from a 12 to 17? Are those the 8 years that you were champion? And then 2-time Ironman Triathlon, Triathlon World Champion. Can we start with that? Because one of the things with One Revolution, our program is called Nametags, and it looks at the labels that we put on ourselves and others. And one of the labels that we might have to put on an Ironman person is like crazy, or I mean, what, you went an hour and 29 minutes? Is that what it was?
For Ironman,
11 hours and 29 minutes.
Yeah. My fastest time is 10 hours and 45 minutes, and my slowest is about it's actually over 12 now.
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah. So, and I think the average time is somewhere around 11 hours, or 11 to 12 hours for the able-bodied population.
What goes into an Ironman? What do you have to do? Because I think some of us have seen it on television, but can you talk us through in a bit of gory detail what an Ironman is?
Yeah, so Ironman is a triathlon, right? So all triathlons are the same in that it starts with a swim, you go to the bike, and then to the run. For Ironman, it's the longest of the distance. They call it long course, where it's 2.4 mile swim, and that could be in the ocean or a lake. 112 mile bike ride, wherever that may be, and then a 26.2 mile marathon. And the cool part is, you're doing it all in a row. It's not like there's rest in between. And you'd think that, okay, over 11 or 12 hours that you're really pacing yourself, and you are pacing yourself. It's not, I would say, a sprint, but I don't know that it feels any different from sprinting in a 10K than it does to the sensations you get when you're an Ironman. You're basically putting yourself to that red line for just hours on end. It's just sort of like, and there's an ebb and flow to it, but it's just
so in Kona, it's an open ocean swim, right? 2.4 mile open ocean swim with how many people? How many people are in the water with you?
Yeah, so Hawaii is the World Championship. So the one in Hawaii is the World Championships. There's Ironmans all around the world, and yes, but the swim, it's in open ocean, and it used to be that we started in waves there was 3 waves, and there's about 2,500 people. And so it's about 800 people per wave. And now I think they've got it down to about 600 per wave, based on the groups. And so you can imagine you're swimming in a washing machine. Now, the challenge for a para athlete like myself, where you're not using your legs, is that, so we have a little bit of a different equipment in the sense of I have a wetsuit on my lower body that most people aren't able to use unless it's a certain temperature. And then I have braces on my legs that keep them straight. And so basically I'm what you would call a merman. You sort of keep the resistance as low as possible on your legs. And what's unique is that as you're swimming, most people, when you're swimming, you put your head to either side to breathe. Well, as a para athlete, the reason someone's in front of you is your hand is always in front of you, right? And so you feel the kicking of somebody in front of you. Well, I don't have a kick. And so it's pretty common, like this is really common, that someone doesn't feel the kick for me, and they don't see me, and they just come up over me. And that happens especially in the first couple hundred yards. Like you're getting pulled over. A couple times where I remember the second to last time that I did it, I got pulled over twice, and after the first one, you're fired up and you're scared. And then the second one, you're just angry. And and
so they swim over and basically just dunk you. Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah. They're coming up over you. And the only way off is just to sort of push you down and go. And some guys are super aggressive about it, and other guys are, a little bit more courteous about it. But that's what it is. And they don't sort of know. They don't even know that you're a para athlete. They don't know, that you're not using your legs. Because other triathletes, they just have a stutter kick. Nobody's really kicking really hard because they're saving their legs for the bike. Yeah, pretty unique.
That's the part. I'm a huge fan of breathing, like on a regular basis. I think it's helpful into sort of sustaining my life and those kinds of things. So that when I'm on red line, like just about at red line, and somebody swims over me and dunks me, that doesn't sound super desirable. That's a difficult start. And so you do the swim, 2.4 mile swim. How long will that take you typically?
Yes, for me, it's about an hour 20, hour 25. And to give you a sense of the intensity of that, for me, my heart rate average is like 168, close to 170 for that period of time, for that hour. And so you get out of that water and I get a little dizzy. I mean, most people, as you're getting up, because you're obviously horizontal, and then when you get up, you get dizzy. And so it's pretty intense at that point. So yeah.
And then that's get the suit off, get onto your bike and go 112 miles. And it's 112 at Kona. It's one of the windiest places. You're going through the lava fields where it's like 120 degrees. I mean, this is a physical feat. I mean, it's just brutal. What are you thinking about? Because we're going to get to your coaching part later on. What are you thinking? You have plenty of time to think as you're going through this 112-mile ride, right?
Yeah. Really, it's about survival. So it's about I'd say it's about getting to about mile 80 or 90 to where you can still pedal. Because then no matter who you are, I'd say for me, it's usually about the last 15, 20 miles of the bike. It's just a mental battle. And so really it's sort of pacing yourself the first 30 minutes. First of all, I'm toast from the swim. Like I got nothing left in me. I mean, it's exceptionally sort of slow in that first 30 minutes where you're just, you basically shift down or up, however you want to look at it, and you're spinning more. So you're sort of just trying to get the lactic acid out of your shoulders, arms, back, wherever. And again, I'm a T5 hair, so I have just from the chest up. So I don't have any abs, no core to work with. And then you get to a certain point in the course, they call it the Queen K, and it's just an open highway. And you can see for about 25 miles on any given day. And it's just these rolling hills, and the wind is blowing. There's trade winds that's the same every year, every day. It's basically 90% of the time it's the same winds. So depending upon when you get out on the course, you basically have a headwind for at least 2/3 of the day on any given day, unless you're exceptional and you get sort of a nice wind day. And so you go through these periods of time where you sort of just find a nice pace where you're hurting, but not too much. So where you get to a hill, you can still give it a little more effort, so you don't slow really far down. And then you have these periods of time where the whole time you're drinking. I don't eat anything the entire day except for breakfast. And then you have the special energy drink that you're taking in, and you're trying to keep your blood sugar at a certain level so you're not dying. And the whole time you're just keeping that. But you just naturally will have these ebbs and flows where you're feeling amazing, and then all of a sudden you're feeling horrible. You're like, I'm never going to make this. And this starts from basically around mile 20 all the way for just, probably 60, 70 miles where you feel good and then you don't feel good. And then there's parts of the course where there's more resistance and hills. And then you're like, oh, I feel amazing. And then you see your family out there and you're like all jubilant and happy. And then the next moment, like a half hour later, like you're crying, climbing a hill. You're like, I don't know why I'm doing this myself. There's no wind here. I'm going to die. And we're lying down on these recumbent hand cycles, and you're just getting you're in like a frying pan, and it's through the lava fields. There's lava, there's wind. And so usually you get to this place where the course comes down, it goes up, it climbs for about 12 straight miles. You go back down that hill and you're feeling good. And then all of a sudden you get to this place and it's about mile 85. And it's just where the wind is always just right in your face. And so you get to that place and you either have it or you don't. So like your training is either really paid off and you're having an amazing day and you can just grind it through like nothing you've ever felt before in the way of pain and suffering. Or you get to that place where you're just suffering and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to put, the next pedal in front of the other one. And I've had those days where, I've had the 6 times I've been there, you have those days too.
That's the time when people are cheering for you on the sidelines and you're like, shh, shh, like don't let anybody know that I'm here. I'm just trying to get by. Like, let's just be anonymous. I'm dying quietly. Let me die quietly, please. And so
Exactly.
what do you think? How do you power through that kind of stuff? I mean, it's just, I mean, you have set yourself up for a gigantic physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, I don't even know what else, challenge in doing this. And obviously that's appealing.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's probably what keeps driving me back to there, because it's one of those things where no matter who you are and how good you are, the pros are out there in the same race, the best in the world, and on able-bodied regular bikes. And so no matter who you are, you're going to suffer. And there's something about that challenge where you think you can't go any further, and then you find another gear. This year was the very first year that I suffered so much. I had some health issues, and it started at mile about 30. And so for, the remaining 80 something miles, I just was suffering, and I got done with that race. And from that bike ride alone, I thought, normally you're like, oh man, I grinded it out. I got to the end. I finished. Like, way to not quit, right? That's sort of like something with somebody with empathy. You're like, oh, you know what? Good job. You didn't quit. Like, you got through it. You did this. Like, you should be proud that you didn't quit. And I just kept thinking to myself, how dumb are you? Like, I'm down on myself because I'm like, I just hurt myself that much. Who in their right mind would hurt themselves that much? And so that was the first time I've ever had that happen. Usually I'm like, you know what? I feel proud that I didn't give up. And this time I'm thinking, you know what? I should have just given up. It just was to that point. And this is coming from somebody that, has done 40 something triathlons, and I wouldn't ever give up. That would be the last thing I'd want to do unless I was really hurting myself. And so anyways, it just brings you to, it strips everything. So you're as raw as you can imagine on any given workout, anything that you happen in your life, whatever that is, you're just stripped raw of all emotion. So you're just, it's all just whatever's inside, and it just comes out. And so you're just grinding it out. I mean, you've got chafing going on, there's bleeding, there's, you're basically just like, okay, just keep your mindset, keep focused. And so you're working on, okay, I've got a cramp in my forearm on my right arm or my left arm. Now let's just use just my right arm now. Let's use more back because that feels fresh right now. And then that will fatigue. And then you're like, you sort of just transfer the hurt from different parts. So you just keep going. And then you're done with the bike and you've got a marathon to go. And
A marathon, which is a really big deal for most people to run a marathon. But
yeah.
This is a marathon at the end of, so how many hours are you into this? You're like 8 hours into this at that point?
Yeah, for me, I'm about 9.5 hours in, depending upon the person. And my marathon time is about 2 hours, and my fastest is 2 hours and 16 minutes, I think. On average, it's about 2:20. And the
Wow.
winners.
So that's a legit marathon after all of that. What's the fastest marathon that you've run, just a marathon?
An hour 42, I think, an hour 40.
Okay.
Yeah. And like a world's best, like Krieg Shabord, I think I want to say he did like a 150 something, like a 157 or 8, something in that range, which is, sort of a course record in the run for a wheelchair time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. Well, it's you are an endurance guy. I remember when you came out and you trained with me out here, and we did some biking out in Utah. And Scott said to me, Scott Hollenbeck said, just let Jason ease into it and stuff like that, and then he'll be good. Then he'll be good forever. And I was like, yeah, but I'm at my best like when we start. Like that's when I'm at my strongest. I just start going downhill after that. So I don't know where we intersect as far as our training. I mean, you are a long distance guy and you get better as the distance goes on.
Yeah, that's been I don't know why that is, but usually it's about 30, 40 miles in that I start feeling comfortable. Like, it just sort of starts feeling good. And maybe it's the training. I'm not sure exactly where it comes from, but I enjoy that part of it. I enjoy the challenge of that part of it. And then just a lot of people, especially in this racing, aren't willing to put that time in. So it's, for me, it's like, oh, okay, I can get them with just working a little harder and being, I won't say even harder, but just more consistent and with my training. And that's something that I learned about halfway through triathlon, is that I had to do it 6 days or 7 days a week and not 4. And so that made a really big difference for me.
What is the training? How do you prepare? This is like, people ask me all the time when I climb Mount Kilimanjaro, how do you prepare to climb a mountain like that? And I said, what did you do? And I said, like, it's basically everything that's ever gone wrong in my life, is preparing for climbing the mountain. It's a lifetime of preparation, and knowing that when something goes wrong, because something invariably will, you can find a way to make it through and keep going. Is that what you're trying to instill in your training? I mean, what's the purpose of your training? Because obviously fitness is part of it, but
Yeah, you know what? There's so much. And first of all, the challenging part is, how do you get to race day in that morning at that moment and feel the best you ever have? Just so everything is just anticipating it and plan. So you plan for a flat tire, you plan for not feeling well on the swim, you feel not feeling well on the bike, you feel for different times, you anticipate every emotion. So obviously the more you're doing it, the better. And for me, when I do a race now, I'm basically starting a year in advance. And so you start with, you sort of basically laying down the base miles and just getting it so that your body can handle the training. And on average, I think it's about 15 hours a week. And so it's not crazy, but it's almost every day. And so it ranges from about 12 hours to about 22, 23 hours a week, depending upon where you are in the training cycle. At the very end, it's somewhere around 20 hours a week. And so it's not one particular day that's particularly long, although towards the end on a Sunday, my coach has got me doing, like, you're on the bike 5 or 6 hours. So I remember at one point, the first time I ever did an Ironman, the first thing I did, well, you got to be able to, spend 7 or 8 hours on the bike. So there was times where I took 6 months off from work. I was just in between school, and I went out and I got on my bike at 9 a.m. and I didn't get off it till like 4:30 in the afternoon. So it was like, people would go to a work day, and I would have it so that different people would bring me water bottles out to different places where I was living at the time, to basically feed me during the day. And you just go out and just sort of low base miles, you're not killing yourself, but you're just getting used to being able to sit on the bike, just sitting there. If you can imagine just sitting on a bike for 7 hours, because we're basically spending about 7 to 8 hours on the bike during the race. And so just being comfortable on the bike and the equipment, and that's a big part of it. So it's really, if you can get through the training healthy, that in itself is a win. It really is. I mean, you get to the race and you're the fittest you can imagine, because you've been training 15 hours on average for a week consistently for a year. And when you have an event like that, you're not drinking, or you're eating really good, you're treating your body well, you're getting good sleep, and you have a reason. And so you put that goal in front of yourself, and you're clear about what you want, and amazing things happen when you put that sort of focus on something for that long.
Yeah, exactly. So is that like the most exhilarating part of it? Like, you've done all of this training, you've put in all of these hours. When you get to the starting line, is it, wow, I am so excited to be here, I've earned my way here? Or is it, wow, I have 12 grueling hours in front of me?
Yeah, you know what? At
Or is
different
it both?
years, when I first started, I was nervous, and now when I go, I'm more relaxed, and I appreciate it a lot more. Although, you want to have your best days, so you're just really focused on it. It's really hard to like stay chill and relax before the race. It's just it's coming, and there's something about like the day or two before where you're just like, okay, you're basically telling your body what to do, and you're like, okay, anticipate this. And so there's some funny things that happen where it rises to the occasion, because you're just anticipating it, you're ready. And so it's a cool experience to to get to that point. I mean, just the fitness alone, when I say this, I would love everybody to experience this because they would never not be fit. They'd never not exercise because you just feel like your heart rate lowers. You just feel like you'd go out on a 2 or 3 hour bike ride that last month and it would feel like nothing. It would just feel like, oh, I'm just out here working out. And like you just put in like a 2-3 hour, like really hard workout and you're just like, well, that was easy. That's just kind of sick, right? It's like, who
It
does
kind of
that?
feels good. You're like,
Yeah.
this is nice. Oh,
It
okay.
sounds like I'm kind of bragging, but it's like, that's just like the reality of training that much. It's like, it's cool. I mean, it's just, I was like, man, I want everybody to experience that. It'd be so cool.
Is that the intoxicating part about it? Is it the training or is it the racing, or what do you miss when you're not preparing for an Ironman?
Yeah. You know what? It really is that daily, the endorphins that's they're just being fed to you. I mean, if you're training a couple hours a day or whatever it may be, it just feels good. Once you get to the point where there's just no aches and pains, you sort of you get to that place where you're at a good fitness level and you're not really hurting. Yeah, you have hard days, but you're not really hurting. There's no sort of bad hurt, and the endorphins are just going. So when I'm not, it it's hard because that just provides so much focus for my life. And so I've really struggled at times when I'm not competing and doing that. So it's really taken a considerable effort to sort of be okay when I'm not training or working out hard. So, yeah.
So that's kind of like your North Star. It keeps you, I mean, you said it changes some of the choices that you make, as far as your eating, as far as your drinking, as far as your sleep. Cause there's so many things that go into being prepared for something that big that you get pure, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's super interesting to go through that and it took a while to sort of figure out what those things are, what's going to make me a better athlete. And they've sort of morphed over time as to what degree I have to be really strict and where I don't, and where I can sort of cut corners or whatever that may be. But yeah, it's fun to figure yourself out in that way. And it's, you're constantly learning. So about yourself, I mean, you get into a race like that, you quickly find out what you're made of really quick.
But that's the big challenge, right? Because you do something like that and then you think, oh, I'm entitled to have this and that and whatever, and sort of indulge in the stuff that the sacrifices, right? Yeah, I want a lot of pizza right now. Like that sounds like a really good idea. And how do you balance that? How do you balance that as you're going forward? Because you can't necessarily, unless you continue to compete, you can't necessarily stay in that pure kind of position.
Yeah.
And how do you balance it? How do you find that balance? How do you stay sane too, I guess, in the whole thing?
Yeah, you know what? I've been experimenting with that, and I thought I had it figured out. And then this year, I got done with Ironman, and I did it in the fall in October, and I got done, and I had a horrible winter. It was just kind of like lost direction, and so I'm constantly experimenting, trying to figure out sort of what is going to make me better, not just for racing, but just in my life and starting this new business and what have you. And so I haven't figured it out, but for me, it's just sort of giving myself a little bit more of a break, that I don't have to always be achieving in that area, and just transfer it to other things in my life. And what's really cool is that when you get done with something like that, because you do feel this sense of accomplishment, no matter what happens, because of what you went through, it's like you just feel invincible in a lot of ways. You're just like, I'm sure you felt it with your skiing, like you have success in that area, and then all of a sudden it transfers to everything else. So it just feels good. Like all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, this is, if I did that, like I can do this other thing. And so that has definitely translated, not entirely, but definitely given me some confidence around other things that I want to do, both physical and non-physical. So
Right, because you've achieved something huge. You've been world champion in arguably the hardest event that that you can compete in, really. That's well, there are some other events, but maybe the hardest wheelchair event that you can compete in, really, that I know of. But then the hard part is translating that. And I want to tie this back to a certain extent to some of what we do with One Revolution. One of our guiding stars are the questions that we can ask ourselves when we reach difficult situations. So Donna Volpitto, who created this program with me, created what she calls the 4 S's of resilience. They're about self, and the question really is, am I a victim or am I a survivor? It's where we find ourselves in these situations. And the situation, is it overwhelming or is it challenge? And are we alone or are we part of a team? And what are our, do we have one strategy or do we have many strategies? And I would imagine that as an athlete, you answer a lot of those things. It's like, am I a victim or am I a survivor? That seems like something that's happening as you're going along the bike through the lava field. Like, am I going to be miserable or am I going to find a way to enjoy this whole thing and go, that was the coolest thing ever? But can you look at some of the transition? Because the transition, obviously, in my eyes, it's a more interesting place. Like what you've trained for is in some ways easier because it has a distinct goal. But then you finish that and you've been in this esteemed position. You've been world champion. And then you're trying to get to that next thing, to whatever's next. And for you, it looks like it's going to be coaching and cool, like mindset coaching and really cool stuff. But do you want to take a crack at maybe those 4 things? So the first one's self. And the question really is, am I a victim or am I a survivor?
Yeah. I would say definitely a survivor. For me, having just coming from that place, it just puts you in a place that you everything is figure outable, and you can just, no matter what's going to come in front of you, that you're going to adapt to it, and having that flexibility for me has always been a huge part. So I would say survivor on that. Yeah.
But is that something that as you're transitioning, that sometimes you're disappointed in yourself too, where you're going, okay, I know that the right answer is that I'm a survivor. But right now, I really feel like I need somebody to tell me what I'm supposed to do, because I don't really know exactly. So I'm feeling more like a victim. And for you, is there some of that conflict within your mind of like, I know the right answer, but I don't know if I'm doing.
Oh, you know what? It's every day. I think it's every day where you go back and forth. And I think there's even like that with triathlon. Like, man, can I do this now? Even though I've done it before. But in this business, especially starting this new thing, and that transition you're talking about, man, there's so much resistance. And it's not that I've come to this place now where the fear and that resistance, it's never going to go away. It's just a matter of developing a muscle around it. And what I learned, and I think I learned this through sport, and I'm just getting this now, and I've gotten different parts of it, but I'm like finally starting to live it, is that I've never been the fastest, I've never been the strongest athlete. Like even though I've won world championships, there's always guys that are faster and better. And so I always, now I've come to realize that, like, for me, it's just, how do I get the best from myself? And for that, it's just focusing on the process and less on the outcome. So as I'm going through this business, I'm like, okay, how do I just focus on the process? Meaning, like, what's my why? Like, why am I doing this? And because, yeah, you know what? There's days I get up in the morning, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm like, or, the days in the morning usually starts with the night before. It's like, what's your PM routine versus your AM, right? I mean, if your PM routine isn't good before you go to bed, if you're going to bed late, and your AM is not going to look pretty. So anyways, it's things like that. So there's a lot of resistance in that place where, yeah.
Well, and the resistance oftentimes is, hey, you were a world champion, and are you sure this is the direction that you want to go? Do you want to do this? Do you want to start your own business? Like, haven't you already worked hard enough? Do you want to start your own business? Shouldn't you just work for somebody else? Like, get paid every 2 weeks, get a 401k, get health care, these kinds of things. Is that part of the resistance? And in some ways, I guess can you turn resistance into your competitor in some ways, right?
Yeah.
Is that an
Yeah.
objective for you?
Yeah, you know what? I'll back up a little bit because it happened about I guess 2 years ago now, or a year and a no, 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, where I was in a great corporate job. I've been in corporate America for 20 years or so, where I was in finance and then in medical sales for 12 years or so. And I had a pretty satisfying job. Like I got the paycheck every 2 weeks and did well financially. And what I would say, just like really comfortable, even though I was challenged and what have you, but there was always just something missing. I knew that there was a purpose that I hadn't tapped into. And so knowing that and having that sensation, I just can't let myself get away with it. I'm like, you know what? There's just something inside of me. If I don't do that, I will feel a lot worse than the pain I'm going to go through suffering trying to make this thing work over the next however many long it takes me to do it. So I just had that agreement with myself. And I don't know that's just a switch you turn on, but because there's days where, man, I'm like, did I make the right choice? But you just have to coach yourself. You have to sort of develop that muscle. And I think for me, it was just sort of starting small, and this is kind of a bigger thing, but you do what you can. Yeah.
And it sounds like in some ways you are actually giving yourself permission to be who you want to be and pursue what you want to pursue, because like your bike ride in Kona, there are those ebbs and flows. There's the euphoria of like, Yahoo, I am doing exactly what I'm supposed to do. And then there's there's the nadir of like, I am the biggest idiot in the world. And the thing is that neither one of those things are entirely true. They're both partially true, but it's almost like that's the game that you're playing. Can I just divert just briefly? We had a question from Eric Kondo, who was on last week. I believe Eric was on last week, and he's asking about, because obviously you have put your shoulders through a fair amount of stress. And what's your opinion on the validity of the current popular theme of saving your shoulders to avoid overuse injuries for wheelchair
Yeah.
users?
That's an awesome. First of all, thanks for that question, Eric. And I loved your talk last week, man. He's so awesome. He's like the MacGyver of wheelchairs and like the stuff that goes on. Like such a cool man. So many cool things. Thanks, Eric. You know what? I'm intimately involved with that decision right now. So I've had it's been 29 years of being in a chair, and up until 28, I never had any issues with my shoulder. And I went through my first Ironman, or my first half Ironman, and I thought, God, there's no way my shoulders I had some scar tissue in my tricep, and I'm like, there's just like no way I'm going to be able to do many more years of this, or even another 6 months of this. And so it became evident to me that what I thought was my limitation which was just using my upper body, was entirely false. Okay, so I competed in 14 straight years of Ironman competition with just from my chest up, with absolutely a single issue with shoulders, triceps, and I mean, nothing, no injuries at all. And so if you think putting 5 or 6 years into whatever sport it is, if you're, obviously if you have bad technique and you're doing things that are hurting you, but I'm here to say swimming, hand cycling, lifting, not super heavy weights. I've never really lifted heavy weights, bands and racing chair for all these years. Like it's never hurt me. I had my first shoulder injury a year and a half ago now, cross-country skiing of all things. I didn't work out for 6 or 7 months, had some downtime, and then made the mistake of going out and probably the hardest sport I could do for me as a person on this planet. And I, it was an hour and 20 minutes just planted the pole wrong, and it tore my shoulder.
Can you just describe what cross-country skiing is like for somebody in a wheelchair? Because a lot of people might not be able to relate to that.
So there's a reason why you don't see a lot of people do it. I think it first of all, it's the most exhilarating sport. So you're basically sitting in the same position as you would in your wheelchair. I sat about 6 or 7 inches lower. Your feet out in front of you. You're on 2 fixed skis. You have these long ski poles, and you can imagine just like this. You have these 2 ski poles, and you're just like this. and you're just pushing yourself. And having no abs and no core, it's just all upper body. And it's the best workout on the planet. You're huffing and puffing, and you come to any little, like just barely a little hill, and you're like, this is, you can barely get up it, at least for me. And so it's really hard. And it's just one of those, I hadn't been working out a lot, and I planted my pole and I kind of stretched a little, and I felt this little pull. I was like, oh, I've never felt that before, in 28 years. And fast forward a few months, it sort of felt better. And then as the year went on, it got better. And then, so anyways, my thoughts are, saving your shoulder is, you know what? You want to make sure you take care of them, meaning all the exercises I did every single week for 28 years, put me in good postural support. So as Eric talked about, the most important thing is how you're sitting in your wheelchair, because how you spend most of your day will then dictate what your body looks like. Is it, are you sitting improperly so that you haven't developed the upper back muscles to hold yourself forward, and you get these giant rolls in your shoulder, which we're all sort of guilty of to a degree, whoever you are, right? It's almost impossible not to. But are you taking care of those? Are you sort of aligned? Or you have good technique in the way in which you're pushing your wheelchair? Do you transfer? Are you using, you putting a lot of stress on them in ways? So what I'd say is, maybe everybody can't do Ironman, but absolutely you can condition them so they can handle pretty much. I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine a lot of people are doing 20 hours a week of training. So anyways, I sort of have a unique, I think, probably opinion on that, but that's where I'm at with that.
But you went to the U of I, University of Illinois, for a long time and raced there, and they were on the forefront of establishing that balance in your shoulders, right? So much of our lives are about pushing. So it's pecs and triceps and those kinds of things. Everything's in a pushing motion where you're doing a lot more pulling. You're doing 2 pulling exercises for each pushing exercise. When you're in the gym and trying to balance it out, get those small muscles to be strong. And it is an ongoing situation for us. And it sounds like, to a certain extent, you were talking about your training and saying, that everybody should have that high of being so fit, and you'd never want to be out of shape. But we in wheelchairs also don't really have the luxury of being out of shape.
Yeah.
Just getting around, just getting into your car, just the things that you have to do, getting in and out of the shower or whatever it is, like these are things where you have to maintain a fairly decent strength to weight ratio in order to be successful, both in getting where you need to go, but also in preserving those joints. And the shoulder is the most vulnerable of the joints. So it's and the beauty of doing what you did in triathlon is that a lot of the exercises were pulling exercises too. A lot of your big acceleration in hand cycling is really the pull, right? I mean, you kind of pull, it's pull, push. I mean, you try to be circular, but those are some big muscles that you're pulling with and helping to balance those shoulders as well.
Yeah, you know what? And I should repreface that. You hit it on the head. So when we went to Illinois, the first thing they taught us, you got to take care of your shoulders. And so it's probably 4 or 5 days a week that you do shoulder exercises. There's some version of whatever that is. But I really think it starts with your posture and doing that. And so if you're not working out, and really strengthening and doing something. So if you count on a weekly basis, how many hours or minutes that you're spending, if you're not doing anything to improve your shoulders or to preserve them, then yeah, you know what, you probably shouldn't be doing anything that's really super strenuous and puts a lot of strain on them. But if you're consistently taking care of them, doing those things, and good PTs, a good sort of trainers will be able to help you do that. But just to say that you shouldn't be held back by it. If you really want it bad enough, you'll put in the work to make sure that you're keeping those safe and healthy, and not to say that accidents don't happen. Like I obviously had a shoulder injury a year ago and I got stem cell therapy. I posted that out on my Facebook, and so it's a process. I may eat my words later, but it's a learning experience too.
It most definitely is. And in your defense as well, on cross country skiing, not only is it difficult to sort of propel yourself forward, but there's no steering wheel on the cross country ski. So you are on uphill, downhill, uneven surfaces, and you are trying with a double pole to direct yourself and to stay going straight, and so that's often where your shoulders will be exposed, because you put yourself in a weird position, and a position you haven't trained, in a position where you aren't strong. But hopefully, if we do stay strong, and you mentioned earlier about the bands, using those bands, just the flexible bands, and
Mm.
those are something that are amazing. I mean, even just like, just kind of just pulling the band and trying to pull your shoulder blades together, and just strengthen that part of your shoulders and your back is something that can be really beneficial and really easy to do, even if you're on the road.
I have $30 worth of exercise equipment in my my condo, and it's amazing what you can do with literally $30 worth of surgical tubing, and now they have these wide bands that are super strong, and I mean, you don't even have to pick up a heavy weight. It's amazing. So I really challenge you guys to, for the guys that are out there that are using chairs, like, work on your back muscles. I'm working with a postural specialist right now to like really bring my shoulders back in a way that just use less energy to sit, and for everybody, right? It's so powerful when you do the right things. I'm constantly trying to challenge myself in that way of like, how do I still do Ironman in like another 10 years? I'm 46. I'm like, how do I do it? Not that I would do it every year, but it's like, how do I get to that place where you not only live longer, but you live longer with a high quality of life? Like, I want to be active. I can't imagine not being active. So
You
that's
have to
my
put the time in to make
yeah
that work. Yeah.
yeah. It doesn't just happen.
Exactly. What about, can we go back to the four S's here? So the second one is about
Yeah.
situation. What do you do when the situation seems completely overwhelming?
Yeah, you know what? That's really hard. Sometimes I don't handle it well, in the sense of getting frustrated, and then for me, I always think, hey, what are the controllables here? Like, what can I do about it? If I can't do anything about it, I usually pretty quickly get over it. Although there's some circumstances where that doesn't happen, but for the most part, I just sort of know that I can only control what I can control, and after that, it just doesn't. I've learned, you just can't control everything, so you have to be okay with just sort of letting things go.
And it sounds like in some ways that frees you of the emotional burden of this overwhelming situation, right? It's like, okay, I feel overwhelmed, and as a result, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
But then you're like, okay, I can only control what I can control. So there's this bite here, there's this bite there. I can move forward, and then I can get a little bit better. Who's your support group? Who do you go to in difficult times?
Yeah, you know what? I have that group. It's versus my parents, and my family has always been there to support me through challenges in life, and whether that's health issues or whatever that may be, and then other close friends who are common friends of ours, and and just being able to talk things through, and people that, it's always nice because when you have those close friends that just know you, and so you can just speak freely and not have to hold back with whatever you're feeling and whatever that may be, and so you don't feel alone, and moving through, because there's always going to be tough times in life, and having those people, like having the support system, there's that's sort of the glue that keeps it together for sure.
Those people who aren't necessarily judging you as you're saying, hey, look, hey, this is a difficult time, and they're like, okay, we know who you are, we know what you're all about, as opposed to, why would you do something like that? Wow, you're not a very good person. And so those people who are suspending the judgment and are continuing to love you unconditionally, and support you, and probably see an easier situation out of it.
Yeah.
I'd imagine when you're doing Ironman, but also now as you're transitioning, there's a need to completely uh, to renew your strategies, right? I mean, you start off with an idea of like, this is how it's going to be, this is how it's going to go down. And I don't know about you, but for me, usually when I say that, it doesn't necessarily work out as I planned. What do you do when things don't go as you plan? How do you come up with new strategies?
Yeah, you know what? Man, it's really hard. These are great questions. I think that it's the hardest thing, and I think I come back to just believing in myself. Like it, and you come from this place where I don't know, I haven't sort of put my finger on it exactly, but there's maybe 4 or 5 principles that I sort of hold true to myself. And that's first is just believing in myself. Just for some reason, for a long time now, and I think it started when motocross and having some success early in life, where it doesn't matter what it is, you just have a sense within you that you could figure out whatever it is in front of you, even through the hard times. And that doesn't mean you don't suffer, and I'm not down on myself, or I don't sort of, but I don't doubt myself. I doubt maybe that something would happen, or that, and maybe that comes back to sort of, my goal has always been, the world around me is blowing up, like right now, per se, like, there's all this stuff happening in the world. And even though, like, you can only control what you can control, and then you just are okay because you're going to be okay. And so I'm constantly coaching myself through that now, especially. I'm like, you know what? Okay. I mean, this is literally like being at mile 85 right now with starting this business, and so you're just coaching yourself through. You're like, you know what? I'm going to be okay. And then every day it's like, okay, how do you just feel a little bit better? What things can you do to feel better? So that carries into everything else that you're doing, and staying positive. And man, that's really hard to do. But when you do it well and you get that momentum, it just starts flowing. And then you trip up a little bit, but then you start flowing again. And so it's just, right now it's a lot of choppy, but I feel like, man, smooth waters are coming. So I just believe that smooth waters are coming. And I'm trying to enjoy the process. Sometimes I'm like, oh man, I wish I had, 1,000 clients waiting for me and all this stuff. But that's coming. That's coming. Okay.
Well, it's interesting because I've often thought about that same kind of thing, and you can be your best version of yourself, and you can be your worst version of yourself too, right? I've often thought that confidence was based on what I could do. Like if I was good enough at something, I should be confident because I can do it and I'm not going to get into trouble. But
Yeah.
some of, in some ways, coming out of my recovery, was the idea of confidence is really that I can handle whatever is going to come to me. Whatever I encounter, I can handle that. And to me, that's sort of the nature of confidence. Like, I don't know what's coming, but I know that I'll be able to handle it. And I kind of, go back and forth between the two. And it sounds like that's a lot of what you were talking about, as well as this idea of like, you know,
Yeah.
being able to handle whatever happens and being confident in yourself.
Now I'll ask a question of you, because it's interesting. As you were starting your stuff, like, versus where you are now, several years later, do you still feel that sense of urgency and sort of that same fear, or is it just like, or you just sort of, you've developed the muscle now? Like, what does that feel like for you when you feel resistance, versus like when you were first starting, versus now where you're a seasoned pro, but still having to figure stuff out though, right?
No, it's a great question. I don't know that it ever stops. I really don't know that it ever stops. It's one of those that uh, you get a bit better, and you also, for me, I think in some ways the resistance, and knowing that the resistance for me, when I started skiing after my accident again, when I started skiing in a mono ski, the resistance, I knew that was my competitor. I knew that anything that crept into my mind that said, hey, you should back off now, or like, this is going to be really hard. I was like, okay, this is the moment. Like, this is the moment that I've been waiting for. when I meet the resistance, then I can prove to myself that I'm there. And I think athletically I was able to do it. Oftentimes I was not able to do it all the time by any means, but afterwards, I think that's one of the challenges, is that resistance, and actually acknowledging that resistance is there, and what it is, because I think sometimes it's a matter of looking at that resistance and saying, or looking at yourself and saying, why don't I feel motivated today? Why don't I really want to do this? Why don't I, I so want to be so disciplined, and I want to, and I want to just get in and just work hard. And I just don't feel like I want to do it. And that's part of that resistance. And I think it's an ongoing battle. And the more, for me, it's almost like, admitting that you have a problem is the first step, and knowing that there is that resistance, and saying, okay, I have to acknowledge that, because it's easy enough to kind of skirt along and be good enough, but when you're missing something, when the heart is missing. And so, yeah, it's an ongoing process of obviously educating myself as I'm moving forward. I've been pretty good at taking big risks. I mean, sometimes I look at myself and go, really, is this what you want to do? But I think that's part of being alive. And so looking at that, saying, okay, this is what I want to do, and acknowledging it, but also really looking at that resistance and saying, my success in the moment is really the definition of success. We often look at it and say the success is the one, is getting to Kona and competing and finishing, and winning, that's the success. And I feel like for me, I have to scale it back and say the success is that moment. The success is when I want to give in, when I don't want to make that phone call, when I don't want to send that email, when I can find, when I decide I want to vacuum the house instead of doing what I'm supposed to do, that's the hard part,
Yeah. I believe that it's born out of the most mundane of tasks that we do on a daily basis, that sort of, and also just sort of build to create this masterpiece of whatever that is. But sometimes it's really hard to focus on the process. We have this attachment to some outcome that we would like for it to happen. And I do a little bit of this now, where the goal really is to feel good. This is something that Keith Davis and the crew, we talk about all the time. It's just like, let's just feel good, whatever that is. It's feeling good. And then, worrying about what the outcome is. And not that you don't want that to happen, or you're not going to do everything you can to sort of build a business or set a goal, or whatever that is. But you make the goal, the primary goal is to feel good, fulfillment. And yeah.
Well, and you're moving into coaching now. And I think I've always believed that you don't necessarily know something until you can teach it to someone else. And so now you're teaching what you've learned to high school students, to people in the corporate, because it's not specifically just sport, right? I mean, it's performance aspect of things, right?
Yeah. It's focused on athletes, but it doesn't really have to be. Really, the concepts, the program is mindset, and really the reason for that is, just sort of stepping back a little bit, is I went and got a health coaching certification, and like, how do I just help people be their best? And I thought that was really about their health, but the more that I understand and know about people, is that it really starts with what your mind game is, and what those tools are. There's just a few things I think that can really help a lot of people. And so working with both younger kids in high school and college, and giving them tools to just, from what I've learned, is just, how do you get the best from yourself? That may not be world championship, that may not be championships, but how do you get the best from yourself? And that may mean happiness, fulfillment. That may mean running a bit of faster 10K. I don't know, whatever the goals are that you have set for yourself. But so yeah, I'm super excited about that now as moving forward.
I mean, it sounds like in some ways you're helping your clients to create good habits? What are the habits? What is the process? How are you going to be better tomorrow than you were today? Does that hold you to a higher standard as you're teaching these guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And first of all, I don't teach, like you said, you can't do it at first unless you've lived it. And then also once you teach it to really understand this, and I'm finding that out pretty quickly, but uh, I've sort of developed a process, and based on what I've learned and what I've gone through myself. And it starts with really just for understanding yourself and where you're coming from. So you really have a deeper understanding of how you tick. And so that is just at the tip of the iceberg of just getting started. So
What does that mean? What does that mean? Like knowing how you tick, like what's important to you, or what do you mean by how you tick? And is that fuel moving forward?
yeah. So it's well, at first there's a few different. I have these a bunch of different assessment tools, and basically what you're trying to do is for instance, the first thing would be, do you have a growth or a fixed mindset? And what does that mean? It's like, how do you look at things? What are your values? What is the philosophy behind the way in which you think? So if you're thinking, oh, you know what, tomorrow it's going to be pouring down rain, and that's going to be really hard. I think I'm going to skip working out. Or, you know what, I had some junk food last night. I woke up this morning, I feel horrible. I don't think I want to do that tomorrow. I'm not going to work out right now because I don't feel good. Or you come out with a mindset of, hey, you know what? It's going to pour tomorrow. Let's go do a workout. Like, I don't know. You could look at however you want to look at it. You could, and maybe that's not a great example, but
No,
there's
that's awesome.
how you, right. I think it's how you look at things. And for me, it really is just what you said. It's our outcome, whatever it is really just a collection of habits. And those are based on a feeling that we have in the moment. And if you don't overcome that feeling in the moment that you don't want to get up and work out or do that work or do that assignment or clean the house or whatever it is, then you won't. And it's just like a muscle. It'll go dead. And so what I've learned now, and this is why I started this in the first place, is that we can train our bodies all day long. But if we don't train our mind, none of it's ever going to happen. And the cool part is it's trainable. It's not just discoverable and we know it's there. Like, that's one thing to understand where you come from, which is, the first place is understand why you've accomplished what you have or why you haven't accomplished what you haven't accomplished. And the next is start training it. And so we go through a whole litany of things to really get you into doing, just like you said, creating habits on a daily basis that then get you in the direction where you want to be. And those are just, they can be really simple things, but you got to train them.
And you're approaching this in a holistic kind of sense, right? Because you're talking about mental training, but you also got your certificate in nutrition as well. And so it's the food that you're putting in, it's the thoughts that you have, it's the physical part that in a lot of ways, it's so easy to look at the physical part and say, okay, well, I worked out, I did this, I did that, but I'm neglecting the other sides of it. And so how do you look at the holistic part? Yeah, how do you look at the holistic part? I have a follow-up question I'm not going to ask right now. So how do you look at the holistic part?
Yeah. Well, first, I think in the self-discovery component of, what sort of habits have created or what will create what you ultimately want for your life. And so for me, it's all those little things. And I come from this place where I don't have all the answers for you. I maybe don't even have any of the answers, but what I have for you is some skills and some stuff that I've learned and that a lot of other people use, high performers in the way of both industry and professionals and business and sport, and that have used to sort of skills that basically allow them to do what they want to do with their lives and really figuring out what that is. And so you can come from this place of being sort of what I would say open-minded and have this growth mindset where you can create any life that you want. You can feel amazing, and just know that that's possible for you no matter what. If you struggle with weight, you struggle with depression, you struggle with being lazy, all that stuff is overcomable. we're not fixed. Everybody says like, oh, that person is the way they are, then they're never going to change. Well, I'm here to say that's just not true. And if you think that way, then that's what your life will look like. And so it's all those little things for me in my life. I definitely wouldn't be able to do Ironman if I wasn't taking care of my body, both physically, mentally, spiritually, all those things that sort of provide the whole, to make me feel good about what I'm doing, and knowing that I'm doing everything I can to be my best.
Well, because it's all connected, right? It
Yeah.
really is. I mean, it's your fuel, it's your outlook, it's everything. Now, getting back to talking about the mental training. Mental training can seem like homework, right? I mean, sometimes it can seem like, okay, I know I'm supposed to do this, but it kind of seems like work. It kind of seems like homework. Are you able in any way to make the mental training fun? Can you turn it into a game? Can you turn it into something that I'm learning and I don't know that I'm necessarily learning it? Or am
Yeah.
I supposed to struggle?
Yeah. You know what? That's a really good question. And there are some things that we sort of make it playful and in that way that it's a game. But at the same time, what we're trying to do is not recreate the wheel on a daily basis. So
Mhm.
if you have to make some small changes, what we say is that you want to just replace some of the things you're doing now with just a different habit. So right now, every night, I don't know, I go into the cabinet, I'm kind of hungry. Whatever's on that shelf, you're going to take off and eat. Now, that could be a bag of potato chips or Cheetos or, whatever it is you're eating. You could replace that by making a simple choice to say, you know what, I'm going to put healthy food in my refrigerator, in my cabinets. And then, so it's really, you're just replacing it. So in the morning, when you go to reach for something in the coffee maker or whatever it is, or you're just replacing something that you're already currently doing with another habit. And so we say to do 2 or 3 of those at a time. Anything more than that, it's hard to really sort of approach something that uh, this all of nothing approach where you just sort of flip your life upside down. Like most people don't do well with that for very long. Um,
It's overload. Yeah.
yeah, it's way too much. And so really just really making small, minute changes to habits that can make a huge impact, as you know, over a long period of time or even a short period of time. And then once you start to cement those habits on a weekly basis, so 2, 3, 4 weeks go by, and then all of a sudden you know what, I did it. And so you make it. And I think for me, the things that help, and I'm curious if this works for you, is really understanding, and before you even start the process, one of the things we do is we set goals, but you understand what your why is. So why you're doing this in the first place. So why you're eating good, why you're getting up for a workout, why you're doing your homework, why you're spending extra time on this project at work, whatever it may be. And so it really fuels you. So I think you have to somehow tap into what that is for you. For me, it's always been sort of inspiration or desperation. And quite honestly, a lot of the times it was desperation, which is not really the most fun place to come from over a long period of time. Short periods of time, you can do that. Like you can be the underdog. But man, if you're always just fighting for something, I just feel like it doesn't create this peace and harmony and this flow in your life. It doesn't have to be hard. And so figuring out what that why is, and I'm curious how you've sort of, because I know that you have that in your life at different times, I'm sure, like what that's been like for you.
Yeah, it definitely is, and I think that the biggest thing, and I come back around to things, it's funny, I mean, you think of sort of, you're saying that I'm further along on this road than you are, but I've had to ask myself a lot of the really hard questions. Sometimes we know intuitively what we're supposed to do, and we do what we're supposed to do, but we're not necessarily fully invested in it. And what I realized for me, the biggest thing is trying to gain a sense of mastery over myself. or a mastery with myself. Maybe I've got to work on my prepositions. I'm not sure, but it is a sense of mastery, and a sense of mastery in that moment. As an athlete, I wanted to be able to perform in the most difficult situations. That to me is the mastery. That's we've got this chemical rush. We've got the fight or flight. It's like, okay, am I going to shrink from this, or am I going to rise up and actually prove to myself what I can do? And the back to it is the sense of mastery, sense of like, can I master myself in this moment? That's part of why I train, and part of why I'm training my mind in addition to my body. Because if you're just training your body, it's really easy to fail in the moment, right? You can be supremely prepared, and it all goes away because you lose whatever the motivation is. You lose your sense of yourself, your sense of who you are in the moment, your sense of whatever. And so for me, it's a sense of mastery, but it's also, there are a couple of different things. It is about winning the moment. And it's something that I call, I think I've coined this phrase, is realizing possible. And we set like big goals, and we think, okay, well, the big goal is the thing, but that's like the thing that you do, like sitting on your couch, like everything's cool, and you're like, oh, this is the dream state, and I want to get to that big goal, and that's going to be awesome, and my life is going to change so much. And the thing is, like climbing Kilimanjaro, you realize that the top of one mountain is then the bottom of the next mountain. But realizing possible is being able to have that same sort of enthusiasm and excitement and courage in that moment. And the other thing that I try to ask myself is how can I be healthy? And that really goes back to when I was in the hospital, after my accident, when there weren't any answers, right? Nobody could fix you. They could put the rods in and they could stabilize it. And it's like, okay, well, you're done and you're rolling out of here, which in my mind, and probably your mind, was, okay, well, I am now half a person, a third of a person, whatever the fraction you want to call it is. And in that time, I thought, how can I give my body the best opportunity to heal? And that's really by helping with my emotions, by helping with my thoughts, by having a sense of optimism, being optimistic about the way it goes. And that was the question of, can I be healthy in the moment? What can I do to be healthy? Which informs a lot of your choices, right? Okay, there's an obvious choice, and there's a choice that I want to do. This is the healthy choice, and you're like, but those Cheetos look awesome, and I really want some. I deserve Cheetos. It's been a tough day, and what can I do to be healthy? So, yeah, that's the question.
That's really interesting. I love the way you said that. There's that inflection point where you have that choice, where you sort of indulge and you follow what I would call the dark side, which sometimes is okay, but other times most of the time you wanna go to the bright side. You want to go to that. And I'm just finding, if I can just sort of, like you said at the beginning, if I could just sort of take a breath and be like, okay, I know I can do this, and coach myself through it, and just relax and get back to myself, and sort of lose any anxiety or just sort of try to disconnect from whatever's happening, and then just move forward and be like, okay, what's going to make me happy? What's going to feel good here? And then just move in that direction, and just keep doing that. Again, it's sometimes it's easier said than done, but
it's easier said than done. But one of the benefits that comes out of it, obviously you're talking about the endorphin benefit of training, right? That you go out and you train and you feel better about it. But it's also that we can create positive direction, that if we make a good decision today, it makes it easier to make a good decision tomorrow, because that felt good. to make a good decision. And you go, oh, okay, that's good. Well, I want to do this and I want to do that. And I think it really is about that momentum, and probably also being kind to ourselves, because sometimes we have those big goals and we look at those big goals and go, I'm not anywhere near that big goal. And we just beat ourselves up. And I think in that way, going, what did you do to be successful today? What was the one thing, what was the good choice that you made? And remembering that good choice as opposed to the potentially bad choices that we make.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you alluded to it earlier. It's really just, is it breaking it down into these manageable pieces so that you can sort of bite off and chew only what you can handle at that moment. And sometimes you're going to take a big bite and you're putting yourself at risk, but you know what? Sometimes you just rise to the occasion when those big challenges are in front of you. And I truly believe that when you put big challenges in front of you, sometimes you either shut down and do nothing, or you just break it down and say, okay, this is how, and try to coach people through just saying, okay, the end result is this is what I want to happen. And then you sort of back into where you're at now. So what does that look like? And really try to, and not to say that you can plan everything, but you can have an intent as to how you want to accomplish something. And so really just breaking that down so that it's manageable over a period of time, then it just makes it a lot easier to do that. And now, and I'm not the best person to ask, but to say this, but because I always think I can do it up by myself, like everything from home improvement projects to working on my car to, changing my own brakes or what have you, whatever that is. But finding someone who's already done it and working with that person, or asking for advice and mirroring and having mentors, people to guide you and support you and inspire you along the way. Man, I'm finding that to be so much more impactful and powerful in my life, enjoyable, and all those things. So the more you can do that, whether that's athletics or business or whatever it is, right? Having a community around you. None of us, and I know you've said this before, it's like none of us do it alone. So
We
that.
don't, but we always think we can. And I, it's funny that you talk about that, because I have a quote of a list of quotes from the Dalai Lama, framed one. And one of the things he says is learn the rules well so that you can break them properly. And I love that, because it's like, okay, we can learn from all of these people, but then there's our individual part of it, where we know the rules well enough to go, I think that we can actually do this. And that's when it gets really cool, but we have to put a lot of work in. And I think that's also similar to what you were talking about in terms of that training and preparation, is that we prepare for that moment. And along the way, if we prepare for that moment, it gets to be a great moment, because physically, mentally, emotionally, nutritionally, we're ready to go. So we've gone over a little bit, but we can continue to talk if you want. I have a question for you. And this is a problem that I have. So I spend a lot of time on the road. And when I'm on the road, I give myself license to eat badly. What can I do?
That's a really good question. It is one of the hardest things, I think, because there's so many good options when you're out that aren't at home. That's so boring. And for me, the way that I do is I associate some real pain to that. So like I'm at the table and I'm looking at the menu and I'm like, oh, I'd really like that big bucket of French fries with aioli and tomato sauce or whatever, and going, if I have that, and I'm just thinking to myself how horrible I'm going to feel, because it feels amazing eating it. Like it feels good for about 20 minutes. And I'm thinking how horrible I feel after it. And then also I sort of picture myself in the worst possible physical condition. And I just create this association, and it just, for whatever reason, just like hits me inside, and where I just feel it, like it already happened. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting something healthy. Like, so I just have this, I just create a negative association that I've been able to sort of bank, and then I just pull it out when I need to. I'm like, no, it's not gonna work. It's eating. I've had to do that with triathlon. It's like, if I ate what I wanted to all the time, I would weigh double what I did now. So And
You go
as you
downhill
know,
well, but not uphill.
you said it earlier, you have to just sort of, it gets easier as you do it, but once it's slippery slope. Once you allow yourself a couple times, a trip, 2-3 days, then all of a sudden you're like, it'll be fine. Tomorrow I'll start. I start eating healthy tomorrow. So anyways, that's how I've done it, is through just creating negative associations with what that is. And then at the same time, also the positive component of man, I feel really good when I'm going to feel really good tomorrow morning when I know when I eat a lot of sugar, for instance, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll just feel it. Or I also know that if I'm not eating well, I potentially get a UTI, obviously wheelchair specific related things here, but
yeah,
all those things. I'm like, the pain that comes along with that. You're like, yeah.
In the moment, we can take that moment and step back and go, okay, I can make a healthy choice. This is awesome. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you want to touch on?
No, I just wanted to say, and also I heard it last week with in your talk, and I'm just about thinking differently, right? I think especially having used a wheelchair for 29 years, and I think we have the ability, like the skill that I would call the figure-outable skill of whatever is thrown in front of us, we can be resourceful. And we're taught sort of coming out of rehab to do a certain thing, to be a certain way, that we can only do certain things. And we have this rule book that we put in front of us. And along the lines of what you guys were talking about last week, of just, thinking about things differently, and that we can create whatever it is that we want. And man, does that resonate with me in the sense of creating what it is out there. And for me, the litmus test is, if I'm scared of it, man, that's something I should be doing. And maybe that's not everything, like jumping and doing bungee jumping or something, or doing, whatever it is, but that's at least one component of knowing that that's something that is going to help me grow and feel better and exhilarated. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm starting this new thing. And that's why I don't know. That's what keeps me, like you said, it's why we're living. So I challenge people to find that thing. It doesn't have to be an Ironman. It doesn't have to be whatever it is. It could be the smallest thing. Man, it makes you feel good when you go after things that are a little bit scary.
But that thing that scares you generally tells you that it's important, and that it's important to you, and that you need to find a way. And I think that, similar to that, when you want to quit is generally the time when you need to say, oh, okay, that's the temptation, is to quit. But how can I find a way to keep going? And we build on that. So I love what you've done, Jason. I'm looking forward these kids and these people who will get a chance to work with you in the future. This is going to be absolutely spectacular. So thank you for putting your blood, sweat, and tears into making the lives of other people that much better, and hopefully helping them, stand on your shoulders. We want to stand on the shoulders of giants, right? That's the way it works. So
Love
thank
it.
you for joining us.
Well,
And
we're following your lead over there,
soon.
man. You've been serving for a long time. And so we all appreciate what you do in the community for everybody. And yeah, it's awesome. Keep it up, man. Keep it going.
Thank you.
It.
We'll look forward to seeing you soon.